And now, it's time for the Well-Read Llama with your host, author Erin Mifflin.
Hello, listeners. I am back after a couple weeks off for moving. My husband Joel and I are getting settled into our new place. One of the things I'm most looking forward to is unpacking, of course, all my books. It will be great to have them on the shelves again. I missed chatting with you all while I was gone, and I've been working on getting a great lineup of guests as we head into the holiday season. If you want to stay in the loop for which authors I'll be interviewing next, please follow me on social media. You can find me at author Erin Mifflin on Facebook or Instagram. I'm so excited to talk to Karen Barnett today. Karen has become one of my can't-miss authors. Her stories always have great characters and interesting settings. Her recent books are all set at national parks, and Karen really makes the parks come alive, as you can feel her love for these places come off the page. Karen is a former park ranger herself, and I look forward to talking with her about that. We are also doing something fun with this interview. For the first time, we are having a book giveaway for our listeners. Karen has offered a copy of her latest book, Through Water and Stone, to give to you. As I mentioned, Karen is one of my can't-miss authors, and I think Through Water and Stone is my new favorite from her. It is really, really good. To enter the giveaway, go to authorerinmifflin.com/Karen Barnett. I'll have more information about that at the end of the interview. Now, let's bring in our guest. Hello, Karen, and welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yes. Now, congratulations on your recent release, Through Water and Stone. And this story is set at Zion National Park. And why did you decide to base this novel there?
Well, this is actually my sixth novel set in the national park, and I've been, have kind of had the joy of experiencing different national parks through story now, and I had done several other kind of different locations, and I had never done one in sort of the general Southwest area. And so the closest I had been was Yosemite, which it isn't quite that same Southwest feel. So I was eager to go down and explore some of the parks kind of down in the Utah area.
Now, you're a former park ranger. What parks did you work in, and how did the experience inspire you to set your stories at these national treasures?
Well, I worked at Mount Rainier National Park, which is in Washington State. And I only did National Park Service for a couple of years. I did it in my summers while I was attending graduate school. And it just was an absolute joy for me. It was like everything I could have ever wanted in a job. And I got to live in the national park and experience this beautiful place. Fell in love with the mission of the National Park Service and protecting these places for future generations. And then got married after a couple of years in working park service. Married my love that I met in graduate school, and we settled down in the Oregon area so he could finish grad school and went to work. I went to work for Oregon State Parks, and so I did state parks work for a couple of years, and that was just as fun but in a different way.
Yes. Now, my husband's brother is a state park ranger in Arkansas.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, so it's fun to hear his stories too.
Yeah, they have some beautiful parks in Arkansas, I'm told.
Now, what other parks have you used for settings in your novels?
Well, my first one was set at Mount Rainier because that's kind of where a big piece of my heart lives. It made sense to start there. And then I did Yosemite in California and Yellowstone, of course, because you have to do Yellowstone. It's like so iconic. And then I actually asked my readers at that point which ones they would like to see. And the number one that came up over and over in comments was Great Smoky Mountains. So I had never been to Great Smoky Mountains, but I went out there to do the research and wrote a novel set in Great Smoky Mountains, which is probably one of my all-time favorites now. And then the last one I did was the Redwoods in California, and then this book, Through Water and Stone, set in Zion.
Very nice. And can I ask if you have more park books that are coming up?
Well, I am working on one right now that'll be set in Glacier National Park, but I'm in the very early planning stages of that story. So I have a couple of scenes drafted out and a little bit of the synopsis, but I'm not finished putting that whole story together yet. So it'll be a while.
Yes. So back to this book, Through Water and Stone. It's a dual timeline novel, which means you have one storyline in the past and one in the present, and then the scenes alternate between the points of view. Can you tell us what you find challenging about writing these types of stories, as well as what you like most about it?
Sure. Well, for me, the most challenging thing is just kind of keeping the timeline straight. I have always, even before I started writing dual timeline issues have always been my number one thing that I struggled with as an author, getting a story to flow and make sense from one day to the next within the story. And so I remember telling Melanie Dobson, who is a friend of mine who writes dual timeline, and I loved her books. I told her I'm never going to write dual timeline because I can't keep one straight. And she told me, don't ever tell God what you're not going to write. And then I ended up, there was a story that just demanded that framework. And I love reading it. So it's like, okay, God, here we go. And I think the hardest thing for me is making sure that each timeline is pulling its own weight. It's kind of like having a team of horses. They both have to do the work and they both have to pull at the same pace. Otherwise, the story can kind of get off kilter. So sometimes it's a challenge to make sure your characters in both of the timelines have as strong a story as one another.
I can definitely see that. And now one thing that I love about dual timeline, and you did this really well in Through Water and Stone, is when you can tell from the beginning kind of how the stories are related, but also not how they're related. You know, you can tell there's a strong connection, but you just don't quite know what it is. Because sometimes I've read dual timeline and you're just like, what do these two stories have to do with each other? And it's not till like the very end and you're like, oh, okay. But I like it better when you can see throughout kind of how they do lean on each other, but also hold their own weight.
Right. And my goal is to just kind of start with a mystery. I don't think of myself as a mystery writer, but I like to choose like an intergenerational mystery. So something happened in the past that will affect the present day timeline, and the present day characters have to solve the mystery of what happened in the past. So I guess it is a mystery. It's just not like a traditional suspense mystery. Yeah, and that pulls the story through. So you're getting pieces, as the reader, you're getting pieces of the story, puzzle pieces all the way through in both timelines. So by the end, you figured out what happened.
Right. And that is a great lead into my next question, which is your historical storyline in Through Water and Stone starts in 1948, and it did grab me right away with this inciting incident, this mystery. So what does this story revolve around?
It revolves around a park ranger and his wife in 1948, and he is working in Zion National Park, but they lost a child just about a year before the story opens. They lost an infant in a flash flood. So a traumatic event. They're both still grieving a year later, of course. I don't know that you ever quite get over something like that. In the process of his day-to-day work, he actually comes across an infant that has been abandoned under a bridge in the park. And this startling discovery, he's worried about how it's going to set off his wife and, what this is going to mean for them. But they end up sort of taking this child into their lives. And there's the whole way through the mystery of where this child came from and how is he going to fit into their lives from here on out.
Now, how about your contemporary story? Can you tell us about those characters?
Sure. The contemporary heroine, her name is Talia, and she is that couple's great-granddaughter. So this is several generations later. And she is, she's a career woman working in marketing in California with a fitness wear company. And she kind of stumbles over some information that she's not comfortable with her employer. And she does sort of a whistleblowing kind of thing and ends up having to leave her job in disgrace. And so what she does as a way to sort of start over and kind of get a grip on everything that's happened in her life is she goes and spends time with her grandpa, who still lives just outside of Zion National Park. He was also a park ranger. And so this time reconnecting with him and reconnecting with nature is what kind of puts her back together after this experience.
Now, I absolutely loved Talia's journey as she learns about sustainable fabrics and clothes that are health and environmentally conscious. And this is something that I've been learning about myself thanks to some friends shining the spotlight on this issue and then talking about their favorite companies that they are discovering on this journey also. So is this something that you've been thinking about as well?
Yeah, and that's why it came up for me with the character is I've been kind of going through a journey of trying to figure out what things in my life are healthy and what are not healthy, and how much to react to stories that we see on the news about various products. Like, how concerned do we need to be about microplastics, or whatever chemical is being talked about in the news at the time. And it's just something I've been studying a lot and trying to decide, where do you draw the line on these things? And I'm a mom. I have kids, grown kids now, they're in their 20s, but it makes me go back and question, boy, were we using the right bottles for baby formula back in the day? And, how are these things changed in the last 20 years? And I think it's something as parents, as just humans living in this world, that we need to kind of keep our eye on. I don't think we need to live in fear of it, but it's important to keep educated about the things that are around us.
Right. And you want to grow in wisdom, right?
Sure, definitely.
Yeah. And one of the reasons I loved seeing this topic in Christian fiction is because sometimes it seems like believers can get stuck in the way things have always been. Now, while it's true we want to stand firm on the fundamentals of our faith, I think it honors God as we learn to take care of ourselves and others in new ways that may be better than what we've known before. And so what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I agree. I think God gave us a mission right in Genesis to protect the garden, or to take care of the garden, to be the gardeners of the world. And he gave us a beautiful creation. I feel like creation is such a gift. And that's one thing I love to explore in my novels is the gift that God gave us through this beautiful world that he put us in. And so for me, I think as a Christian, I find a responsibility in making sure that we're taking good care of the gifts that God gave us, and not just, using up all of our resources, but that we're paying attention and we're being thoughtful about the way we use the world around us.
Yes. Now, speaking of our Christian faith, why is it important to you to have a faith element in your stories?
Yeah, I think as a Christian, it would be difficult for me not to have a faith element. It's such an important part of my life. It affects everything from the decisions we make. Well, just it affects everything. And so to leave God out of my stories would never have seemed right to me. I don't tend to go into a novel with the idea, oh yeah, I'm going to preach the gospel in this one. I like to just put either Christian or non-Christian characters in positions where they have to think through things, and they are forced to consider their faith and consider what God would want them to do in certain situations. And I like it to be a gentle growing of their faith. I do have moments in some of my books that have a come to Jesus moment, a conversion moment, but mostly it's Christian characters learning to walk more closely with him.
Yes, and that's relatable to Christian readers, I would think, as we're always growing in our own walk with the Lord.
Right, I would hope so, yeah. And I think when people read Christian fiction, they're looking for that. When I read a book, when I read a novel, I'm living through that character when I'm inside the story. And so I'm very careful when I'm writing characters that I want people to come out of the story knowing a little bit more, or at least, they've been able to stretch their faith because they walked in the shoes of a character through a difficult situation. So, we may never have been in a situation where we lost a baby. I'm thankful that is not something I have had to deal with personally, but I've been with friends who have. But walking through that with a character in a novel gives me some experience of how I could grow in my faith through that traumatic experience. So I think it grows our faith just walking with characters in difficult situations.
Yes. I really like how you phrase that. That's good. Now, I wanted to ask you, can you tell us about your really cute mascot, Ranger Bear?
Yes. So Ranger Bear is a little teddy bear that I think I bought back in my Park Service days. I think I bought him at Mount Rainier. He's a little teddy bear that wears a park ranger uniform and a park ranger hat. And he's really cute. And a number of years ago, I had posted a couple of pictures of him on Instagram or Facebook or something like that. And Rachel McMillan, who is an author and an agent from Canada, started getting on me about, he needs his own Instagram page. Ranger Bear needs his own Instagram page. And I remember thinking, oh, that's really kind of silly, but it would be fun. So I made him his own Instagram page, and it kind of took off on me. He ended up having more followers than I did as an author. Though some of them are, teddy bears from Japan and stuff. It's not all readers. But it just got to be a fun thing for my husband and I to do together. We look for places that, when we go to national parks, we take his picture in front of the sign and doing various things in national parks. And then during the lockdown, we kind of went all out, and we were shooting videos of him like jumping off of our balcony with a parachute, like all these adventures that he could have at home. And so we have lots of crazy adventures from that time. Him riding on the back of our dog like it's like a park ranger riding on a horse. So we did lots of crazy things. Now we're back to taking pictures of him mostly in national parks.
That is so fun. Let me see. I've been able to meet a couple of these, like mascots for different authors. I've met Erica Vetch's Jane in the Library.
Oh,
and Katie Pounder's Moulin. So those are just so fun, just to have those very recognizable, mascots or the things that are associated with them that just help bring these authors and their stories to life.
Yeah, and it fits well with what I write, so it's been a lot of fun. So I try not to do a lot of book marketing on his page, but people can find it if you're on Instagram. It's at @rangerbear_adventures, so rangerbear_adventures, and he's on Facebook too. So.
That's great. Now, besides writing and exploring national parks, what are some of the other delights in your life?
Oh, well, so many. I'm a mom, I'm a wife. My kids are in their 20s, and it has been a lot of fun seeing them launching out into life at this point. In terms of hobbies, for me, photography is probably my main hobby at the moment. My dad was a professional photographer, and I used to carry around his big camera equipment when I was a little girl. And so whenever I'm taking pictures now, I feel very connected to him, because I remember things that he taught me when I was little about taking pictures and framing a picture. And then I also love to get out and hike. I love cake decorating, anything creative. I do a lot of crafting. I have so many craft supplies that I will never get to. So, yep, I have a lot of things I love to do.
That's really cool. I didn't know you were into cake decorating. I do some of that too.
Yeah, I don't do anything serious. I don't do like wedding cakes, that kind of thing. I like to do really bizarre birthday cakes. It was my goal every year that my kids could choose whatever kind of design that they wanted for their birthday cake, and I would find a way to make it happen. So I've done everything from, cartoon characters up through my son tried to stump me once, and he wanted geometric shapes. So I made a pyramid and a sphere and a cube out of cake, which was probably one of my hardest ones I've ever done because of the straight edges.
Yeah. Now, is there a scripture that has been meaningful to you recently?
Well, I would say one of my all-time favorites is one that actually gets featured in Through Water and Stone, because it's something that comes back to me a lot, and that is Psalm 46:10, which is the "Be still and know that I am God." God has to remind me of this over and over and over, because I'm a worrier and I'm a planner. So if you've read the novel, you know that Talia was a planner, a list maker, and all that. So I'm much like that. I want to control everything, and I want to plan out everything, and I want a lot of surprises in life. And God's continually reminding me that He is in charge, and I just need to be still and know that He is God. He is in control. So that's a good one for me to say over and over to myself when I feel like I'm spinning out of control. Is know that I am God.
Yes.
Know that He is God.
That's right. And I also think that's a good verse for exploring nature too. When you can get out and be still in nature and, you know, see Him as the creator in a different way that we don't see in our everyday lives.
That might be one reason I like nature so much, is because that is the time when I am the most still, because I love to just go out someplace and just sit and soak it in. My husband and I just went to Glacier last month, Glacier National Park, and we were, going through our list of all the hikes and stuff that we wanted to accomplish. And at one point, he had an online meeting that he had to attend. And so he sat in our camper van with we have a Starlink, so he had a satellite connection. He's going through this meeting that took a couple hours. And I just walked down to this lake that is right there where we had parked. And I just sat by the lake for like 2 hours and watched the sunset. And it was like, this is what I love about nature. It's not the hikes. It's not the viewpoints. It's not, checking things off my list. It's just sitting out there and being and observing what God has made for us. So it's just the most incredible thing to me.
Yes. Now you make me want to go and find a lake to sit by.
Yeah, we all need to go find a lake today.
That's right. Well, how can readers connect with you?
Well, probably the best place is my website, which is KarenBarnettBooks.com. Don't forget the books on the end. KarenBarnettBooks.com. And I have a newsletter that goes out. It's called the Compass Club newsletter that goes out supposedly once a month, though it's really a little more like every 2 months. And I put a lot of information about national park travel in there. Ranger Bear has his own little column. It's kind of like a magazine that goes out. And also, of course, any information about book sales, Kindle sales, appearances, things like that. So a little of everything. Very fun. So they can sign up for that there.
Well, very nice. Listeners, please do go to KarenBarnettBooks.com to find out more about Karen. Her last name is spelled with 2 T's, so that's KarenBarnettBooks.com. Karen Barnett Books. If you enjoy dual timeline stories, please consider checking out author Amanda Nguyen. I love her dual timeline novels. She has a new one that just came out, and I'm reading it now. And as usual, it's just really drawing me in. Hers also usually have a connection to music somehow, as she is an accompanist at a high school, and she just loves her job working with youth as well as writing these stories. Some others are ones that Karen mentioned in her interview, which is Melanie Dobson. And then there's Jamie Jo Wright, who writes very suspenseful, maybe kind of creepy dual timeline. There's Amanda Dykes. Now, not all of hers are dual timeline, but some of them are, and they are just very lyrical and very deep. So if you like that kind of writing that you really, really, really sink into, you should check out Amanda Dykes. Carrie Taransky has some as well. I actually have not read her dual timeline. I've read some of her earlier historical romance books, but not that one. And then Christy Cambron. Now, Christy Cambron, some of her dual timeline are actually triple timeline. And I confess, they were good reads, but they were also kind of difficult to keep track because she has 3 different timelines with 3 whole sets of characters. And so those can be kind of tricky to read, but they are very good. And each of these ladies are fantastic storytellers in their own right. And so if you enjoy dual timeline, those are some that I would suggest to you. Now, if you are interested in more stories also that take on some of these issues, kind of like we were talking about with clothing and healthy options, an author that I would recommend would be Sarah Monzon. Now, Sarah is someone that I've had on the show before, so if you go to my YouTube channel, author Erin Mifflin, you should be able to find that interview there. Sarah does a really great job writing about topics or health issues or different things like that that are not normally addressed in Christian fiction. She does a great job bringing representation to some of these matters. I was especially thinking of her book, Nicole, which is about someone who's very environmentally conscious. And I can see how some people might have their feathers a little ruffled and think, oh, maybe she's going a little too far with that. But do remember that it is a fictional character, and, she might grow some through the story too. I really appreciated the perspective that Sarah often brings to her novels and bringing awareness to situations and issues and matters that can be easily sidelined sometimes, but she brings a great perspective to them in helping us think about these things. Don't forget to enter the giveaway of Through Water and Stone, Karen's latest book. To enter the giveaway, go to authorerinmifflin.com/Karen Barnett. You can get one entry by leaving a comment and another for being a subscriber to my monthly newsletter. There's an easy link on the giveaway page to subscribe if you have not done that already. Another reason you should consider subscribing to my newsletter is because you'll be the first to hear any news that I have on my own author journey. And man, I am sitting on some pretty exciting news right now. I'm waiting for the green light to share, but you aren't going to want to miss it. Newsletter subscribers will get to be the first to hear it, so go over to that giveaway page and subscribe today. It would be great fun to have you on for my journey. And in my newsletter, I recommend other Christian fiction releases that you might enjoy. I share recipes because I love to cook. I share thoughts on what God has been doing in my heart recently. And I just try to have a good time over there with those of you who have invited me into your inbox. That is a real privilege, and I do not take it for granted. And I consider my newsletter subscriber friends. So I would love to have you as a friend and get to know me over there, and I can have the chance to get to know you as well. So I can't wait to tell you more about my news, and I can't wait for you to hear some of the other guests we have lined up. So yes, stay tuned, keep in touch. If you have an author that you would like for me to interview, you can always contact me on Facebook or Instagram at author Erin Mifflin. Visit my website, authorerinmifflin.com, and drop me a note there or subscribe to my newsletter. But until next time, happy reading.
Join us next week for another episode of The Well-Read Llama with your host, author Erin Mifflin. If you'd like to find out more about author Erin Mifflin, visit her Facebook and Instagram accounts.